Hi everyone, welcome to this session. This is this live study strategy discussion, and this is going to be a really interesting session because what we have tried to do today is very different from the usual webinars that we do, where we kind of talk about the strategies to improve. We thought that let's do some live case studies. Let's invite some students who have been in a similar situation as you are right now, who have not basically uh, who has not completed their GMAT journey, who are basically still preparing for the GMAT and looking for a score improvement. And let's see how we can create a perfect success plan for them so that they can achieve their dream score. So that's what we are trying to do today. And a very warm welcome to all of you to this webinar. I see a few highs from a few people. I hope my audio is audible to all of you. There might be some issues with my video, so please pardon me for that. There's a little bit of internet issue which is going on, I guess, at my end. But I guess my audio should be perfect to all of you. So it will be great if some of you might comment in the chat if you are able to hear my audio loud and clear. So that will be good to know from you guys. In the meantime, I'll quickly introduce myself. A very quick introduction about who I am. I'm Piyush. I represent GMAT and I have 8+ years of experience mentoring students targeting MBA from Tier 1B schools globally. So I've helped people across the globe, from India, from US, Canada, Europe, all countries that you can think of, get into top Tier B schools of their choices. So that is something which I have a lot of experience in. Uh, Personally speaking, I have prepared for GMAT and taught for GMAT as well as CAT. CAT is basically an exam that you have to give if you want to get into top Indian B schools. But I've done preparation for both and taught for both. And I've scored a 740 on GMAT myself in the very first attempt with a Quant 50 and a Verbal 41 and a 99.9 percentile on CAT. And personally, I really like analyzing trends and data to come up with strategies. And this is something which I like doing and helping students learn from my personal exercises as well. So that is a quick intro about myself. And what I've tried to do today is we actually rolled out an email from GMAT Club with the help of Abhijit and others from GMAT Club team to see if we can get different use cases, different students having different problems basically, so that we can talk about all those issues and people who are attending this session can actually relate to one of those issues and learn from their experiences. So while we do so, please feel free to ask any questions that you have in your mind when we are discussing. And it will be great to actually hear from you guys if my audio is clear, because that's something which I want to understand. Hello, Kailash. I'm happy to have you here. So what I've tried to do here is I have invited three people. We'll start off with Abhishek, who has scored 630 on the GMAT, actual GMAT, official GMAT, with a Quant 44 and a Verbal 32. We'll start off with Abhishek, who is from India. Then we will move to Harry. We have invited someone who has from Australia who has scored a 690 on the mark without any preparation, with a quant 42 and a verbal 42, so that we can actually focus on the quant improvement strategy, a little more on the quant improvement strategy is how I'll put it. And then I have invited someone from Indonesia, Tia, who has scored a GMAT 500 on the official test and a quant 44 and 25. So what I've tried doing here is I've tried representing three category of students: someone who is right now close to 700 aiming for high 700, someone who is right now in the mid 600 range where most people see a plateau in their scores, and how they can improve to a 720 730 kind of a number, and someone who is in the low 500 score range and targeting, let's say, a 680 or 700 mark, so that we can cover different use cases. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some questions, understand about the student, and then kind of understand from there what is the best path forward. So this is going to be live. We have not interacted with students a lot that we are going to deal with. So yeah, a lot of this discussion is going to be very natural, very free flowing as we go ahead. So without any further ado, let's invite students live one by one. So we are going to go one student at a time, starting from Abhishek, who has taken 3 attempts on the GMAT till now. So welcome, Abhishek, to this session. We're going to start discussing about
Hi,
your use
Piyush.
case. Hi, Abhishek. Hello, from, I think, all the users, I guess. So, Abhishek, I recollect our small discussion that we had initially to get some data points from you. And if I remember correctly, you had taken 3 attempts on the GMAT, the
Yeah,
latest
right.
one being in February, which was a
Mhm.
630. And after that, you have not prepared, like you have not prepared for, I guess, 4 months, and then
Yeah.
you restarted your prep very recently. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And the few data points which I could understand from Abhishek, basically we noted down was that he has been scoring 650 in the mocks recently, 650 to 670. So Abhishek, which mocks are these mocks that we are talking about over here?
I have a subscription of Score 800 mocks, as well as I'm trying the
Okay,
free mock on other reputed platforms, Veritas,
okay,
Manhattan, the free mocks. Yeah.
okay. So these are basically not official mocks, you're saying, right?
No, I have exhausted two of my official mocks. I have two more subscribed, but I'll be
Okay.
attempting them once I'm confident with these mocks.
Understood. Understood. So a little more background. I'll actually get into this mocks as well as we move forward about the scores to understand exactly what is your current quant and verbal skill level overall. The second thing that I understand is you're planning to take the test in about 22 days from now, which is the end of
Yes.
November. Have you already scheduled the date, or you are yet to do
No,
so?
I haven't. I haven't.
Okay, okay. Any reason why you are planning to like take it at the end of November? I have a hunch, but just to confirm.
Yeah, it's for round two applications. So
Okay.
I believe by end of November, if I have a score, I'll have sufficient time to prepare my applications and submit it within the deadlines. So I don't want to rush everything to end of December or January where round two applications are closing. So
Very true. Very true. Makes sense because in the end, it's all about the application, the essays that you write.
application.
So if the quality is not great, then there's no point in taking the GMAT either. So definitely
True.
very important point. You should definitely plan for at least a month or 45 days, in my opinion, if you have not worked in an application. However, I have a different viewpoint over there as well, which I'm not going to talk about right now. But yeah, as the discussion goes ahead, if I feel that is relevant, I will definitely bring it up. So the resources, if I understand what Abhishek has used till now, is GMAT Crack Verbal, and right now he is primarily practicing from GMAT Club. So what does a usual day right now look like for you, Abhishek? Like when you start preparing?
9 to 5 office, so I'm usually back by 7:30 p.m. So I give 3 to 4 hours before going to
Hmm.
bed. So I usually practice official questions from GMAT Club, and
Okay,
once a week I appear for a mock. Then
okay.
I dedicate the entire week on analyzing my mock score and what all
Hmm.
went wrong.
Hmm.
And so I repeat the process. So I've been consistently getting 660, 670 in the last three mocks.
Okay,
But the point where I struggle is like how to bring about a complete improvement in my score. In every mock, I'm committing some different kind of mistake. So
hmm,
that is where I'm
understood.
struggling.
Understood. And if I remember correctly, what you mentioned earlier in your email was that your CR and RC accuracy is slightly on the lower side, I guess, compared
Yes.
to SC. And in quant, you generally struggle with timing. That's the
Yes.
main data point
For
that you
for
shared.
700 level questions and some
Okay.
600 to 700 level questions. Otherwise, yeah, that's pretty much
So
it.
in 600 to 700 level questions, how much time you're taking in quant?
Usually, I'm finishing most of the questions within 2 minutes. Some
Okay.
questions take 2.5 minutes, but that is balanced. So while attempting the quant section, I
Hmm.
rarely run out of time. I'm able to complete
Hmm.
when I reach the last question, that is 31st question. I usually have 2 to 3 minutes in hand. So
Okay.
yeah,
Understood. Okay. And what about 700 plus level questions? What is the usual time that you take for these questions?
2 minutes plus. And some questions during my mock or practice exam, I've even touched 8 minutes trying to figure
Eight
out
is
how
a
to
lot. I know I will get to eight.
not. But
Okay.
yeah, I give 2.5 to 3 minutes max
Okay.
managing my time. So if I cannot solve it, I just guess it and move
2.5 to 3 minutes. Let's take that
on.
because
Yeah.
outliers will always be there. So
Yeah.
let's ignore the outliers for a moment. And let's say, so when you say 700 plus, this is basically the 700 plus that you filter from GMAT Club, right? The
Yes, right.
diff- and these are like official questions that we're talking about
Official
over here.
questions, only official questions. Yeah.
Okay, okay, very good. Okay, so let's move to the next thing then. So overall, see, and I looked at your data, and you mentioned that your target score is around 720. Like I'm just taking like the higher end of the number that
Right.
you mentioned. So that's like your real target. So the first thing which comes to our mind when it comes to planning our strategy is how should I break down my target scores in terms of quant and verbal? Because unless we do that, we don't really know what we are aiming for, and it's very difficult for us to kind of create a chart from where we are to where we want to achieve go overall. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's understand that first. So personally, I feel that you are doing slightly better in quant. The reason I use the term slightly better is because of your official mock scores. Percentile wise, you are more or less having a similar percentile in both quant and verbal. But
Mm.
skill wise, if I tell you, like, I feel you are slightly better skilled in quant than in verbal. So my recommendation would be not to maximize your quant score in the less amount of time which is available with you, but rather to balance it out a little. So my recommendation here would be that you should kind of get to a quant 49. Aiming for a 50 in this timeline might be very, very challenging for you.
Yes.
And a verbal 40 is something which you can balance. Again, 49-40 can get you a 730 as well. But on a bad day, let's say you don't end up getting a 49, or let's say a verbal 40. So what I always believe is that you should have a little bit of buffer over there. So this is, in my opinion, the best target score for you. Uh, so with that in mind, let's understand where you are at present. So right now, what I understand is that in your mocks, you are scoring 45 to 47 and verbal 33 to 36. This
Yeah.
is the
Right.
broad range, right? In real. Okay.
Yes. Right.
So let's get a little deeper into this, Abhishek. So if I talk about, let's say, the last 2 or 3 mocks, can you tell me like about those last 2 mocks? Let's start with those. Yeah. Which mocks were these, and like what was your score in quant and verbal?
The first mock was of Manhattan Prep, the free mock,
Okay.
and
Okay.
second one was of Veritas Prep. So
Okay.
I took these two mocks, and
Okay.
both the mocks, the scores were within these range only. For Veritas, I found the English to be on a
Slightly
tougher
tougher
side.
side. Hmm.
Verbal, yeah. The language was denser, not the solutions. It was easy once I decoded the sentences or sentence correction question as well.
Hmm.
Uh, so I could, like, my sentence correction accuracy for these two mocks was around 80-82%.
Okay.
Least was my critical reasoning, it was 70%, and
Okay.
reading comprehension was 80 to 85%.
Okay. So you're saying SC was basically the best
Yeah,
and CR was least around 70%. And RC you said 80 to 85. Isn't
yeah,
this
80,
the best in that case?
yeah,
Okay. So this basically SC and RC are almost at a similar level is what you are saying,
yeah.
right?
But SC and
Okay.
CR is fluctuating in every mock. RC I am maintaining within this range only 80 to 85, sometimes 78. But SC and CR is fluctuating. Sometimes SC goes up to 85% as well and drops to 70 also. Not below 70, but yeah, 70. Same is for critical
Understood.
reasoning. So problem is in
Understood.
critical reasoning questions. In my analysis, I found that for wrong questions, I have devoted more time, and yet
Okay.
I got them wrong. Right questions, I am
Okay.
able to solve the right questions for verbal within 2 minutes, sometime 1 minute, 20 seconds, even 30 seconds, 40 seconds, right questions. But for wrong questions, I have devoted as long as 3 minutes on a particular question, and still I got it wrong. So that
Understood.
is my struggling point for CR. So a lot of
Understood.
pre-thinking, still it is not helping me.
Understood. Understood. Fine. So I'll get to that as well. In fact, like when I talk about the verbal section specifically, I'll come to that. So if you can tell me, like if in case if you have written it down somewhere, what was your quant and verbal split in the Manhattan and Veritas mock that you took?
I don't remember exactly. It's Q45 and V34, if I remember correct, in Manhattan.
Q45 and V34.
Q45 and
So
V30. Yeah,
34. Okay.
yeah.
And this one would have been a slightly better Q score, right?
Yes, it was V36. No, Veritas was V36.
Okay.
Although it was dense, but it was V36. And Q went down to 43.
This went down to 43.
43.
Hmm.
So both of them have some slightly different scoring mechanisms.
Hmm.
So I ended up
Hmm.
getting
Hmm. Hmm.
660, 670 in both of them. But
Hmm.
quant is not an issue for me because I know the mistakes I committed were silly mistakes and I could have easily done with them. So in
Hmm.
both the mocks, I made around 7 to 8 mistakes in quant.
Okay.
And none
Okay.
of them were like that. I don't know how to approach this question. They were silly mistakes.
Fair point. Fair point. So let's get to that, and I'm just gonna take up a few questions, like just from the chat, because I think the list has gone a lot longer since we have been talking about mocks, which is, it seems like a common pain point with many people. So some people are asking, is it better to try multiple mocks or stick to just one mock, say Manhattan or Veritas? See, my viewpoint is that you should ideally stick to official mocks as much as possible. Then, if you have exhausted them, then you should go to other mocks, and free mocks. There's no problem in like looking at different resources, but look at resources which are more standardized. So I personally find Manhattan mocks and Veritas mocks, even GMAT Viz mocks, are very close to the actual GMAT. uh, what about Experts Global? Again, personally, they are a GMAT club partner. I don't want to speak bad about it, but my personal experience has not been really, really great with Experts Global mocks. But anyway, we will talk about the mocks later. So we'll come to that part later. So I don't want any other questions related to. I'm not answering any other questions related to mocks as of now. I'll stick to this discussion. And Aishwarya, we have the third student who is actually at a score range of 500, approximately in that range. So I'm going to talk about that a little later. So you have to stay tuned till we come to that. But yeah, coming back to Abhishek's case. So Abhishek, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to break this into two different parts. Okay, so we'll talk about the easier thing first, which is quant. That's the easier ball to kind of goal, and then we'll talk about the more frustrating thing, which is basically verbal, like why is that score really fluctuating. Okay, so let's get to both one step at a time. So I'm gonna talk about my personal thought process about your quant score. So when I look at your Manhattan score, Manhattan mocks, I personally find a little more difficult in terms of the difficulty level of questions that is tested on the actual GMAT versus those Manhattan mocks. The only mock in which I have scored a quant 50 ever is the Manhattan mock. Otherwise, my all mock scores was a 51. So I personally felt that Manhattan is really, really challenging. So your 50, 45 in Manhattan kind of makes me feel that you have the capability of getting to a 46 to 47 level. But when I combine this with this data point and your official score of quant 44, that kind of creates a certain doubt in my mind. Now,
Yes.
we can pass this off as a silly mistake, as you said, that okay, you might have made a few mistakes here and there that might have triggered this. But I would like to bring about another possibility. So let's talk about that possibility, and this is something which you need to be very, very careful of in the GMAT as a test. What matters, like the difference between, I personally feel the difference between someone scoring a 44 or let's say a 47 could be as simple as the accuracy in first 10 questions, basically. So what happens here is, this is a scientific fact which can work in your favor or against your favor as well, depending on the day, which is that there could be some topics specifically in which you are not very great. For example, I don't find it difficult to accept this as a fact that I'm not great at geometry, especially when it comes to the more difficult questions in geometry. So it is possible that those questions are appearing more often in the
In the
first
first
10,
section.
and that's when you see a drop in your score. So
Mhm.
the first thing which you need to be very careful about is, what are your weak areas? Like, are you having issues in any specific topic? And this is more importantly from the perspective of, let's say, easy and medium questions overall. Like, let's not care about the hard ones. Let's first care about the easy and medium ones. So my recommendation is first to look at any topics, and this is where you would need to have an error log. Again, I couldn't get the chance to kind of look at your error log in depth, but you need to make an error log around this. And what I'm recommending here is that you should take an 30 question quiz for all these four topics. Like, looking at your score, this is what I recommend, because you are at a very decent skill level in quant. You're not someone who is a beginner. You have been preparing for quite some time. So take up 30 questions from each of these areas: number properties, algebra, word problems, and geometry. Ideally, you should try to create a quiz where you get at least 3 questions from each subtopic. What I mean by a subtopic is, let's say, prime numbers and number properties, divisibility. In algebra, it could be linear inequalities, absolute inequalities, things like these. So at least 3 questions should be there, and it should be a fair mix of easy, medium, and hard questions. More importantly, for you, it should be medium and hard questions. Easy, if you're not taking, for an instance, or not taking many
Mhm.
in this case, it's still okay. But you
Yes.
definitely need to do this, in my personal opinion. And once you are done with this quiz, you need to identify whether you have concept gaps or application gaps in these topics. Okay, now in case someone struggles to create these quizzes can be created on the GMAT quiz platform. We have this ability of creating these quizzes. But in case you're using any other material, please make sure that you have a balance of all the topics. That is very, very important. So once you are done with this, how you can identify your concept and application gaps. And again, whatever values which I'm sharing over here are like, let's say, holistic values around accuracy. 60% is like the accuracy in that particular topic, or 60 to 85% accuracy. So 60% is or less if you're scoring in any topic, that generally signifies that you have many conceptual gaps in that particular topic. Okay,
Right.
so do this scientifically. That way you will be having a very good idea about exactly what your problem areas are. And 60 to 85%, if you get in this range, that means you have concept gaps are not there, but there are certain application gaps. The way you're approaching that question, that basically needs to change overall. So your focus should be on these two areas. In GMAT quiz, we have this habit of categorizing these in red and these ones in blue. So this is how we categorize these areas in topic wise. So what I recommend always is, for the red topics which are there, you need to kind of learn the concepts and formulas again. I know that Abhishek, you would be definitely knowing most of these concepts, but sometimes there are certain special properties that you do not recollect so often, and that
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
leads you to an error. Okay, per my
Right.
expectation, from your looking at your scores, out of the 33 topics which are tested on quant, I feel about 4 to 5 are gonna be in this category. I don't expect more than this number to be in this category, looking at your current score and the skill level which I can see. So you need to relearn the formulas and the concepts as soon as possible. These are your low hanging fruits. And then what you need to do is, you need to learn how to solve questions and practice 15 to 20. Over here, what is important is that you should be focusing on easy and medium questions first, basically. So
Yes.
make sure that you hit a 90+% accuracy in this. There should not be any scope, like you should not compromise on the accuracy on this questions, at least overall. Now, what about the application gaps? Now, in my opinion, this is somewhere where most of the work is required. Approximately, I would say anywhere between, just a second, anywhere between 10 to 15 topics could be out of 33 which are tested on GMAT, and anywhere between 10 to 15 could be in this area. What I mean by application gaps is that you know overall the concept, you know how to solve the question, but considering that you're taking additional time to solve, like even the medium difficulty questions, that means that the method that you're following may not be very well optimized. So you need to optimize the method of solving the questions. So for that, it is very important that you learn how to solve questions methodically. And when I say methodically, I mean like in a very organized fashion, the best possible way. Again, in case someone is a GMAT student over here, I remember seeing a few people who were there. We have a file called Concept Boosters where we kind of teach exactly this method, and a lot of our students have found that helpful. But please make sure that when you learn, like when you take up these areas, let's say, Abhishek, you see that linear inequalities is one area in which you are, let's say, having application gaps. So then you need to start looking at this wavy line method, or the number line method, as some people call it. If you're
Yes.
already aware of it, well and good. But I'm just taking an example that you need to
Yeah.
see that method, and step by step. Like there are 3 steps which are there. You need to always make sure that you follow those 3 steps in that particular order, always. Okay. And then you need to kind of do 10, 15 questions. Ideally, I would recommend doing them in sets of 5, so that you kind of understand exactly how the method is supposed to be applied overall. So that's my personal recommendation to you in this case, that if you do this, then your process gaps will be taken care of. So obviously after this, the story doesn't end. You have to do a lot more effort or practice on your process gap related areas for sure. So that is something which you need to definitely do a lot more work on. Okay, any questions on this part from you, Abhishek?
No, the application part for quant, I find it especially more difficult for the questions like min-max problem, where I need to think a lot. There is
Hmm,
very less calculation on paper. Everything is in mind, where I need to think about the range. And so min-max problem, then second is overlapping set. So
hmm,
these are the areas where I can use some tips how to go about them, like min-max problem, particularly involving sets or
hmm,
averages. So
hmm,
these questions, they take a lot of time, mental thinking. So how to put in time in these questions? This is one area where I have found mistakes in every mock,
Hmm.
or it has been time consuming till now. So
Very valid point. So good that you're aware of those few weaknesses, but I would always recommend that do this more scientifically, because the problems which hurt you more are the ones that you're not aware of. So that's number one. Number two, regarding the top processes or the methods that I would definitely love to talk about those, but considering that we have a limited
yeah,
time for this session, I cannot do that. But yeah, just to give you an idea, even in overlapping sets, there is a very structured methodology which is in place, which I personally use, which is known as exactly one, exactly two, and exactly three. There are like two or three equations that you can easily create in all type of sets related questions, and that can actually help you do it in a more structured fashion instead of just plugging numbers and trying to minimizing or maximizing things. Again, I'm not going into the depth of it for because that's not the scope today. But the
understood.
idea is that you need to seek for slightly better methods and more importantly universal methods, not shortcuts which can work on only a specific variety of question inside that topic. Like something which you're learning should work on all sets related questions or a significant proportion of sets related questions. That is the main thing that you need your focus on. And again, these are certain things which we teach in the concept booster files that can be learned, or you have to find methods which can work better overall. That's the main idea which is here. Now let's get to the depth of verbal. So now if I look at verbal, what kind of is more alarming for me is approximately your let's go back to this. Yes. So what is more alarming for me is your fluctuating performance in sentence correction. Okay. Now this fluctuation could be again because of two reasons. Number one, it could be because of, let's say, concept gaps. That okay, again you are getting a slightly higher proportion of areas in which you are not conceptually sound in one mark over the other, and that's not happening in the other mark. However, that's less probable than the second one, which I'm going to talk about. And the second one is how you apply that concept in the exam environment. So if you are someone who feels less confident about the choices when you're marking those, because in verbal what also happens is that you get stuck between two close choices many times. Okay, so on certain days it's like a flip of a coin. You get uh, heads more often or a tails more often, so it could be that as well. So you need to identify exactly which one of the two is it. So I'm gonna put you on the spot, Abhishek, and I'm apologizing for this right now. I'm gonna ask you to solve a question for verbal today.
Okay.
Will that work? Fine.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So let me quickly do open a question. And what I want you to do is I want you to kind of focus on uh I want you to read your mind out. Like I want you to read things out,
Hmm.
think out
How
loud.
will I
I
approach
want
that
to see
question?
how
Yeah.
exactly. I am more interested in that because it's not just about solving this particular question. I'm more interested in the overall thing. So let me just get you the right screen. Just give me 1 second for that. Okay. So and what I've done is I'm given you a SC question in which I have taken out the option choices as well. Okay.
Okay.
So I think you should be able to see it. Is it big enough to read? It is small.
Slightly.
Let me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
How about now?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Clear.
Let's get. So whatever you're thinking, it has to be out loud
Okay.
or reading also.
Okay. So as soon as I see since there origin, so there is a plural pronoun. So I start looking for the subject. So the subject is at right place just after the comma, the oil
Mhm.
industry, but oil industry is not a plural noun. So
Okay.
that is my first indicator. So now I go to the options. I'll read the sentence first, but in
Mhm.
real time solving, I go to the options. I rule out first of all the options that are using there. Just
Okay.
first elimination. Okay. So this is that.
Read it out loud if possible. I would
Yeah,
like to
okay.
see how you're reading as well.
Since their origin in the mid 19th century, the oil industry developed an industrial structure that emphasized scale and scope to maximize profits, which could have been huge, attracting entrepreneurial efforts on national and international scale. Now, here the second thing
Mhm.
that strikes me is placement of which.
Mhm.
So which is not positioned right. It is modifying profits, which it should not. Actually, the industrial structure is the one that attracted entrepreneurial efforts on national international scale. So the placement of which is another indicator for me. So I look for the options that make sense with the placement of which. So these are my two approaches on which I'll try to eliminate the options.
Okay, so now you will move to the options and you kind of try and see exactly which option is fitting with the errors that you have identified. Then probably you will look at the splits in those option choices and kind of try to see if the other things which are different are good or not, right? This is exactly how you'll approach it, right? If the option choices are there, right? Okay. Okay. So, Abhishek, tell me one more thing. Like when you solve questions, like what is your accuracy generally in hard SE questions? Is it like
Hard is
is
in
it more
700
fluctuate?
level plus.
700 level. Yes. Yes.
So there is a split between two kinds of question. There is a type of question in which just one word or a very small phrase is underlined.
Mm-hmm.
And second type of questions is where either the entire sentence is underlined or
A
50 or
significant
60% of
portion.
the sentence. Yeah.
Mm.
So my accuracy in that significant portion underlined questions is higher than that
Pretty.
the
Okay.
single word is underlined. Because that single word
Okay.
underlining, sometimes I hit the spot. Otherwise, I'm like just dabbling between options, which one should be there. So usually
Okay.
700 level plus questions, I strike at 60, 60, 70%, not
Okay.
higher.
67.
Yeah.
But that is where your fluctuation happens more. Like, is that right to say or wrong to say?
Yes, yes. My accuracy in up to 600 to 700 level questions, the easy ones,
Hmm.
it's 90 plus.
Hmm.
Approaching 700 in that bracket, again, the one word underlined is more typical, is more difficult for me to address. If
Hmm.
I get a phrase, I can find out at least one or two things that will at least help me eliminate three options. Then I'm fixated on
Hmm.
two options, and there I try to eliminate. So
See,
it's
the more option, the more choices you get to pick and choose, the better it gets for you, because you can then, let's say, even if you miss out one error, you can still pick the other one. The problem is when there is only one single error in the sentence. That's
yes,
where your main
yes.
problem is. Understood. Understood. So again, for the sake of our discussion, Abhishek, I'm gonna quickly solve this question as I would solve it myself. Like, I'm not doing it for the very first time. This was a new question for you. For me, it's an old question, but I'll still try to do it as I would do it for the very first time. And I want you to focus in how I approach this question and see if you find any difference between how I approach and how you approach it today. Okay, and see if we can learn something from it. Okay, so let's do this question quickly. So since their origins in the mid 19th century, okay, so this sentence is talking about something which happened at the very beginning of the mid 19th century. The origins of that thing happened in the mid 19th century, and something else has been happening since then till now. So I don't know whose origins I'm talking about. I don't know what happened since then. So let's try to understand both as we read forward. The oil industry developed an industrial structure. Okay, so now I get the context clear that it is talking about the origins of the oil industry. So definitely there does not make sense over here. It should be it's because there is plural. It's a singular, which is the case with oil industry. The second thing I get to know is that that event which has been happening since then is the development of an industrial structure. So if that is an event which has been happening since then till now, and I'm trying to communicate that using a simple past tense, that's incorrect,
Yeah,
because
that's incorrect.
it is a single event in the past, and I'm talking about
It's
an
continuing.
event which is, so it should be the oil industry has developed an industrial
That's all.
structure. Let's read further. So till now, I understand what has been happening since the development of, since the oil industry's origins. The focus has been on development of an industrial structure. But what kind of structure? I don't know. Let's read further. That emphasize scale and scope. Okay, so the structure emphasize scale and scope to maximize profits. Now I get the entire picture that the goal has been on maximizing profits, and the entire development of the industrial structure has been around that, which could have been huge. Okay, when I say which could have been huge, obviously which seems to refer to profits because it's placed next to it. To maximize profits, I'm talking about maximizing the profits. I'm talking about something could have been huge, kind of relates as well. Maximizing, huge, those two things relate. But when I say could have been huge, what I'm trying to communicate is that something is a hypothetical that we are talking about over here. This is a hypothetical event which did not happen, could have been possible. Like, let's take a parallel. uh, I aim to score a 760 on the GMAT, which could have been possible. Now if I end at that, that's an incomplete thought. which could
Yes.
have been possible
Some
when.
condition. Yeah.
Next point is when. What if? That there should be some condition which should come next. Let's read further. Attracting entrepreneurial efforts, comma, attracting entrepreneurial efforts. So I'm talking about something attracting entrepreneurial efforts. Now, this is the ing verbal preceded by a comma, should be referring to an action. What attracts
Yes.
entrepreneurial efforts on national and international scale? Probably some other action in the sentence. But is that a condition? Definitely not a condition. Can a hypothetical event attract entrepreneurial efforts? Definitely not. So what I feel is that there is also something which is wrong with this part over here overall. Okay, so I see three errors. I see this is an error. I see this an error. I see this one also is an error overall. So Abhishek, tell me like what is the difference that you saw when you were solving this yourself and when I solved this myself?
First thing is meaning based approach.
Okay,
This is
okay,
the last thing I do on my when I'm stuck with two options. Then I
mm-hmm.
go for the meaning.
Focus on the meaning. Okay,
So that is
okay,
one thing. And second is breaking down the segments. I
mm-hmm.
read the sentence and then try to identify what is wrong, what is wrong, what is wrong. So you're going
Mm-hmm.
part by part, breaking down
Mm-hmm.
the sentence. So that is a more structured approach. I actually scan the sentence and just look for okay, this seems wrong. Then how this particular thing should pair with other verb or yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, markers are there. Like if I see a that, if I see a which,
Mm-hmm.
so I immediately start scanning the sentence so that I can eliminate some options. So my approach is I try to eliminate the options as soon as possible. Then I'm fixated on two or three options where I can find the correct answer. So here you are actually solving the original sentence and then trying to get on the options.
Good, very valid point. So Abhishek, uh, honestly speaking, what you said that you do is something which I also do. But the difference is that in the test, like my sequence is different, your sequence is different. Your sequence is first those markers, then the meaning. My sequence is first the meaning, then those additional splits and other things. So probably in the exam, if this question was given to me and Dyuti has a question, she says, does sentence correction question come with options as well? In fact, Dyuti, every question will come with options. I took out options deliberately so that Abhishek doesn't get biased by the options. I wanted to see how he reads the questions to him. So that was intentionally done. But in official exam or the test or no mocks, you will always have option choices. So don't worry about that. But when the options are there, when I'm identifying an error, what I also do is I identify what could be correct. And then I look at options where I see that correct phrase being used. That helps me to kind of reduce the number of choices that I need to look at, basically.
Yes.
But even at that instance, when it reduces the number of choices that I need to look at, I still focus on understanding the meaning perspective. I want to make it logical. Now, the reason for that is very simple. I want to take out the subjectivity out of the entire thing. If I don't remember a grammar rule or if I don't remember something, what will always help me is kind of the logical thought process around that. Because in GMAT, I see the only thing which matters is the sentence making logical sense or not. Like
Yeah.
when we speak colloquially, we can probably say that, okay, this, I understood this. Even if I don't use developed
Yes.
or has developed, I can still understand the meaning. But what I'm more interested in is it completely logical from the nuances of the logical aspect of grammar, more importantly. So, Abhishek, if you are reading this in this way, now why did I pick up SC? When like your score in CR is also, you are saying that not really, really great. The reason why I picked up SC was to kind of understand how you generally read uh, initial information which is provided. So in CR also, there is a high possibility that you are missing out on some important keywords which are there. And you need to kind of relate those small elements to move forward with the entire thing. So my recommendation here is that if I go with SC first, that you should try to focus a little more on the meaning side of things, especially for those small underlined portions that you're talking about. There, the other aspects of the sentence, the non-underlined portion will make a lot more important, like carry a lot more weightage. Because right now, what it seems like that you also stopped when the non-underlined portion ended. You did not care about what was the, sorry, I said it the other way around. You also stopped when the underlined portion ended,
Yeah.
right? So it's possible that you are not focusing a lot on the non-underlined portion. So that's where you need to also give your attention to. So If that is a common trend with you, I would recommend solving more questions where the underlining is less. And
Hmm.
irrespective of whichever questions you solve, you need to focus on the meaning aspect of it very, very closely. Now, for that, what is important is that you need to kind of review. Let me just get the drawing page back so that way I will be able to write what I want to. So basically, it is important that when you are solving questions, okay, let me just write it out only. When you are solving questions, you need to review the solutions in depth and make sure that other things match or not match. That's the second thing, but at least the meaning of your sentences should definitely match. This is very, very important. Okay, so let's say I see the solution of this question. So how I will look at it is that, okay, it is, let's say, broken down into 4 or 5 places. Is my meaning of the first portion matching with my understanding of the meaning that I drew when I was solving this question? Is the meaning matching there or not? If it is not matching, I need to kind of improve that aspect. And this is something which you have to do in CR. In CR, you will probably not question whether the meaning is logical or illogical. That is something you don't have to question. But what you need to do in CR, if you are actually struggling with the more difficult questions, is that you need to draw the right inferences and the linkages basically of the sentences. So what I'm trying to say here is that in CR, generally the bigger thing is that first sentence and the second sentence, when they're sitting together, can you see what is the flow of information which is there between the two? You need to ask, based on the first piece of information, can we derive the second piece of information, how they are linked together? Is there a jump which is happening over there or not? And that is something you need to definitely do when you are reading the question stem. You should not do it after reading the option choices. So pre-thinking, many people misunderstand it. Maybe pre-thinking for many people is that all about making sure that they have kind of uh, pre-thought the answer, but it's not about pre-thinking the answer. Pre-thinking is all about pre-thinking the argument structure, whether the information flow is logical or not. And trust me, Abhishek, if you start doing this, if you start looking at the inferences that you drew with each line passing, and you start looking at the difference in context that you had versus the difference in context which
Good
was
question.
supposed to be understood,
That's your
that
answer.
is where your improvement will happen. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you were asked about to say something, so please go ahead.
No, I understood that. I understood that. So, context part in critical reasoning, yes, I try to find the missing link whenever I see the like premise and conclusion for assumption questions, for example. So I try to identify the missing link.
Mhm.
What additional thing is required. So that approach is okay, but I do a lot of pre-thinking. I try to pre-think 3, 4, 5 options. So I think that is what taking more of my time.
Hmm. You should stop that. In my opinion, you should definitely stop that. What you should focus on is, if you have identified the missing links, then you should move to the options and kind of see which option is kind of fitting that. In fact, we have this thought process of framework driven pre-thinking that we preach at GMAT West. If you want to check out, there are some webinars on framework driven pre-thinking on our YouTube channel as well as GMAT Club YouTube channel. You can check those out. That will kind of give you a streamlined approach as well, where we say that, okay, if there is a question type which is cause and effect or something like that, you can just think about those specific areas. Okay. So I will summarize the discussion. We went overboard with the time. I guess like I thought
I
that
was
we could
waiting.
talk about it a little faster, but let's get to the next steps basically. So what the quant we already talked about. Let me just skip these slides and let me just come to this. So now what I recommend is that, looking at your current skill level, approximately 33% of your effort you should put on quant and 66% effort should go on verbal. So when I say 33, 66, let's say in a day you're studying for, let's say, 5 hours, then you can have a 1.5 hour slot for quant and let's say 3.5 hour slot for verbal. Approximately that should be good enough basically. And when you are doing this, like for quant, I already told you, you have to identify your weak areas in concept gaps and process gaps. One more thing that you need to do is identify topics in which you are taking extra time to solve questions. Because when you take this diagnostic test, which I talked about, there's a possibility that in few topics you might get a better score than 85%, but your timing is poor. So if that is happening, then you need to practice those questions extensively, ideally in sets of 10, because generally what it means is that there is a bit of a concept gap, or you are taking, you know, the best method of solving it, but you are just not used to solving that question that many times, and that's why you're taking extra time. So this is one habit that I used to do, like build as a student myself, that I would solve a decent number of questions so that I can redo it multiple times and reduce the time over there. So first step, concept working. Second step, process. And then the third step is to refine that process to a great degree. Okay. The next thing which you need to do is identify common habits of silly mistakes and try to curb them as much as possible. For example, if you are someone who calculates 2 multiplied by 3 as 5, what does that mean?
It's calculating, not focused.
Exactly. It's not about silly mistake. It's actually because you're not focused when you're doing those calculations. You're assuming that this is a petty thing, I can do it fast. And the bigger problem with those silly mistakes is that you will most likely not even recognize it even if you're reviewing the question again. So it's important that you do that in the first attempt probably. Okay. So make sure that you're identifying those errors. Like another
Funny
error
thing
could
is
be
that I every time get that even after committing that silly mistake, that option is still there. That wrong option is there.
yeah, that is the trap GMAT sets up for you. Otherwise, yeah, that's where PS becomes tricky. And I've learned it the hard way. Yeah. Like you put it all the effort, you do a small calculation mistake, and you're marking something which is not right. So
Yeah.
my recommendation is go slow. And one more thing which I recommend, and this is also something which many people categorize as silly mistake, is they will not read the question stem properly. It's
Mm.
written that say x is like not equal to 4 or x is an integer, and we start taking decimal values as well.
That's
Why that
values.
happens? Because we are thinking too much about the time taken to solve the question. So please
Right.
make sure you stop, look at the question, think for 10 seconds that okay, how am I gonna approach this question? Do it slowly. Take that time. Because if you take that time, trust me, your overall time taken to solve the questions on an average will be less. In fact,
It's
like you said that you take 8 minutes also sometimes for few questions,
some
right?
question. So,
On some questions, right? It happens in 1 or 2 questions in the mock test, maybe, or 5 minutes also. See, if I
mm,
look at your prima facie timing for quant, like the 700 level questions, if you are taking, let's say, 3 minutes in 1 or 2 questions, it's fine. Even if you give me a 700 level question, I might also take 3 minutes in 1 or 2 questions. That's okay. But what is a bigger problem is even after that, you're facing some timing issues. That means in few questions, you are taking 5 or 6 minutes. So
yes.
1 or 2 even. Now, why that happens? That happens because uh, there is an inner nature of us to kind of sometimes use values and solve questions quickly. Sometimes, like some tricky methods, some tweaks, some uh, different methods to just get it out quickly. And it's then we do not think about the outcome of what we are going to do next. And sometimes when you start doing that, after 1.5 minutes, you realize that you're nowhere, but you have already invested
Yes.
1.5 minutes into the method. So it's too much time to quit and take a U-turn. So you continue investing that time. So my recommendation would be that if you are not headed anywhere after spending 2.5 minutes into a question, at least you know that, okay, even after spending another 30 seconds, I am not sure if I get the answer. It's either better to quit it or to change the approach. If it is in the first 15, I will probably change the approach, relook at
Mhm.
it. But if it is in the next 15, I will probably quit it and move forward. So that's another important lesson. Now, context building in verbal, that is what you need to focus on. Again, I had this prepared from personal experience of what I understood from your use case, but yeah, some additional details which I'm gonna talk to you about right now. So my recommendation would be that you should first look at sentence correction and see if there are any specific concepts in which you are facing any issues, just to be taking this out of the equation altogether. In my case, I knew that comparison is one area in which I'm not really great, especially omission. So first take this out of the equation altogether. Then
Mm.
you need to start focusing on the meaning building habit overall. So meaning based approach is what you need to focus on. So my recommendation would be that next 4 to 5 days that you spend, at least 4 to 5 days, should be solely focused on building this as a habit. Why is
Right.
this important? Because this is going to help you in CR and RC as well overall. Okay, so that is going to be the my recommendation first. And when what you are going to do in this 4 to 5 days is that you are going to solve questions in sets of 5 to 10, not bigger sets. I would recommend small sets initially, at least, where you're focusing on the meaning of the like in the solutions, you're focusing on the meaning, matching with your understanding, and making sure that you're always thinking in that direction. Make this as a
Okay.
habit. Once this period is over, then you can increase the sets to even 15 to 20 questions. I don't see a problem in doing that. But what you should be focusing on in these days is approach. not timing. Again, I'm telling you this upfront. You mentioned initially in the discussion that we had in the morning, like 5-10 minutes, where you said that you want to solve questions of SC sometimes in even less than a minute. Trust me, it doesn't happen. Like, I scored a 94 percentile in GMAT SC, the actual GMAT. I still took 1 minute 15 seconds to solve the questions on an average. Uh, is it a bad thing? I don't see it's a bad thing. Even 1 minute 30 seconds is fine till my accuracy is high. So even if you're taking 1.5 minutes, do that. Don't over optimize the timing. That is gonna be counterproductive. Okay, so that's what you need to do. Then you should move your focus to CR, and this is where you need to work on your inference and framework driven pre-thinking skills, which I was talking about. Try to learn a little bit around this framework, basically frameworks that I'm talking about. That will help you significantly. In my opinion, about good 7 days of effort should be given to this, because that should help you improve that. So again, if you come to GMAT Viz, all this can be done in a more organized fashion. The platform will automatically, it's an AI driven platform, so it will automatically give you all these things on your platter. But 7 days of effort should go on framework driven pre-thinking. If these two are done properly, I can bet you that your RC is going to improve automatically. Because if you are doing well in RC right now,
Yes.
the only issue that you're facing is timing. SC and CR is the culprit, RC is not the culprit. You are good in RC. It's just these two that you need to work on. So overall, about 11 to 16 days you spend on this, and then you start taking mocks and see what is the result that you're getting. Your score should not fluctuate. My funda here, Abhishek, would be that you should only take the GMAT when in two back-to-back mocks your score is verbal 41 or more. If your score is not here in two back-to-back mocks, you should not write the GMAT. In that case, and this is what I was talking about initially, that I have a second viewpoint as well. So my opinion would be in that case to kind of start working on your applications in parallel, basically, and
Okay.
give a little bit of time to GMAT, give a little bit of a time to applications. And if you think that 10 extra days can get you that, that is better, because there's no point in taking the test if you're not reaching the score consistently in the marks.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay. So any other questions you have, Abhishek, for us?
No, that will be all. And it was really informative, detailed analysis. I think, yeah, I've taken a lot from the discussion. And I think other attendees have also gained a lot.
Yeah.
So thank you very
I
much for
think yes,
having.
there's some common points for Tia as well. Harry's case is very different, so definitely we'll take up his case next and then move forward. So thank you so much, Abhishek, for taking out time. In case you are interested in speaking to me or anything else, you can reach out to me on my number. You have my number anyway. People who are not having my number can reach out to me on this link, using this link to schedule a discussion. I know I cannot take all your questions today because I'm gonna take some important use cases. But thank you so much, Abhishek, for being with us and talking about a use case. All the best for the GMAT, and I hope the session helps you in getting your score up. Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Okay, so before I invite Harry, quick thing again for every one of you who is joining this, it is possible for you to improve your score in case you are in a similar boat as Abhishek was. One of our students, in fact, improved his score from a 650 to a 730 in just 24 days by learning these methods, which I'm talking about, reviewing the solutions in depth and identifying the patterns in incorrect answer choices overall. So Akshat has done this. You can also do this if you do the right things honestly, and that can be done. So in case you are interested in watching Akshat's story interview, this is someone who has done this. Abhishek is basically Akshat part one, where he was stuck and then he was able to improve by focusing on the right things to do. Okay, so now let's invite Harry, who's a very different use case altogether. Like, he's someone who has taken a cold mock without any preparation and has scored a 690. And I'm sure there would be few people amongst us. Rarely the people get this done. Like, I don't think there would be more than 5%, even less than 5% people who will get a 690 in their first mock. But yeah, so he has a different use case. He is at a quant 42 and verbal 42. So the same scores in verbal, but different capabilities definitely. So welcome to this session, Harry. I've
Hey,
actually
hey,
made
how
you
you
wait a
going?
lot. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So Harry is from Australia. It's already, I guess, 1 a.m. your time. It's the next day.
Almost.
Right?
Yep.
Almost. Okay. Okay. But yeah, so let's quickly look at the different data points that I was able to capture in our discussion. So verbal is really strong right now, at least compared to verbal is how I look at it. Definitely, like, Harry, are you a native speaker of the language? Like, have you done your schooling in Australia itself or US?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. So that is
Yeah, in
something which
Australia,
works
yep.
in his favor. So he has a native speaker of the language. So verbal is something which is really good. He needs to do a little more work on quant, but considering that you have not prepared for the test before it, this is really, really decent performance right now. And if I understand correctly, you're planning the test in 55 days. That's what you wrote in your message. So you
That's
have
the
to book the
goal.
date already.
Yeah.
Huh?
I
Okay.
haven't booked it yet, no, but that is the goal.
That is the goal. Okay. And is it safe to assume that you have about 3 hours a day on an average, let's say, to study? Let's say weekends and weekdays combined.
How many hours, sorry?
3 hours a day on an average. Yeah. So 150 hours overall. Is
Uh,
that right to assume it?
could I put those hours in? Yes, but a big part of my problem is actually committing to make that happen.
Okay. So yeah, I remember the problem that you talked about. Okay, so let's assume that you have, let's say, 100 to 150 hours. So we'll assume that data wide. And
Yeah.
one more thing, till now you have been just using GMAT Club for practicing, and some books like Manhattan Strategy Guides, I guess, initially that you have done, right?
Yeah,
Till now.
exclusively
Okay.
free resources to this point.
Okay, good. And what he's looking at is a big problem which he was talking about, which is theory building is a problem. Like, so Harry and I also kind of suffer from that disorder, which is attention deficiency. So we are not able to focus too long on one thing. So in my case, Harry, I'm not sure like what is your case, but for me, I need to take breaks after every 15 to 30 minutes. That's the kind of attention deficiency that I struggle with. I'm not sure if it is worse or better in your case, but yeah, so I can kind of relate to the problem that you're talking about over here. But yeah, let's talk about these things. So my recommendation, you're looking at a 760. Since your score is really good in verbal, you're a native speaker, you should try and maximize your verbal score. What that means is that your focus has to be on verbal as well as quant. It should not be just on like the quant score. You should try and improve your verbal a little. So right optimal target for you would be about a 46 in verbal and a 48 in quant overall. So this is what you should kind of try and target. Now, this score combination could also get you a 770, by the way. So even if it is, let's say, 1 point lesser than like each in each area, still get a 760. And as you said that your target is a minimum of 760, then this is the bare minimum that you should try to keep in mind. Okay, so let's talk about what are the things that you should be doing. So in my personal opinion, if I look at your score right now without any preparation also, if you have gotten a 42, that basically means that you can probably approach questions like you have a very good understanding of quant. Innately you can learn and develop those understandings really fast, in my personal opinion, and concepts I don't think are a big issue for you. So I'm also going to put you on the spot a little. I know it's very late your time, but I'm going to ask you to solve a question in
Lovely.
live right now. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to ask, and what I'm interested in the approach, and what I'm interested in is basically how you think about it, more important than anything else. So this is a data sufficiency question which I'm giving you. Okay, so this is the question which is there. I just made it up. So
Okay.
yeah, I hope my writing is legible.
Yeah, no, I think so. So is x cubed greater than x squared? Question mark. So before I look at the statements, I want to try and understand what I already know. So based on that, if it's a positive integer, I would expect that x cubed will be greater than x squared, but we don't know that x is positive. If it's negative, then we'll end up with a negative number, meaning it'll be smaller than it. So that's my first kind of inference from just the given. So looking at statement 1, I mean, there's probably other things that I'm not but also relevant, but like fractions, whatever. But anyway, statement 1, x squared minus 5x plus 6 is greater than 0. And then statement 2, x is greater than or equal to 4. So, oh, I shouldn't read statement 2 at the same time, should I? So is x squared greater than x cubed? So with that, I'm wondering if I can factorize the first statement to work out what possible values, because if I mean, with x squared being one of the things on the left-hand side, I'm going to have multiple values of X likely. So that probably means it's not going to be sufficient. So that's just my first thought without actually doing any algebra. On the second statement, X is greater than or equal to 4. Well, that kind of comes back to what I already inferred, being that if it's a positive integer or just anything greater than 4, then a cubed version of it is going to be bigger than a squared version of it. So I think 2 is sufficient. So I would say B.
Okay. So you're saying this is sufficient at least. Okay, I want you are saying this one is not sufficient or sufficient? You said not sufficient, right?
Well, I would want to spend more time, but assuming I'm in any kind of time pressure, my thought
Let's
is
say you
being
do
that
are not in a time pressure. Let's say.
okay.
Let's assume
Well,
that.
I would try to factorize that to see what my possible values of X would be. So I would say
Okay.
X. How would I factorize this? So
Let me factorize that for you. So let's
X
ignore
minus.
that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So then we have 2 possible values of X being 2 or 3. 2 cubed is greater than 2 squared, 3 cubed is greater than 3 squared. Well, both of those situations are like, yes, X cubed is greater than, so that would actually be sufficient as well. So once if I'd done the factorization, I would have said, which one is both is correct? D? So
Okay. Great. Okay, good. So I kind of understood what I wanted to understand. So here are my observations for you, Harry. Number one,
yeah.
you are someone who is really methodical when it comes. If you know the method, you will use the method really well. For example, when I give similar question, let's say not the same question obviously, but a similar question to anyone else, 50% of the students will not process anything with this information x cubed greater than x squared. Okay, they will just move to statement 1. They will think, okay, let me kind of identify the values of x and then let's place it in the question stem and get the questions correct, which is a wrong method for ds questions. Will it work in this case? Probably yes, but will it work in all ds questions? A big no. That's the biggest mistake which people do. That is something you did not do. You tried to first identify in which direction are you trying to tread. What is the direction that I'm going to take exactly? So that's a very good thing. The second thing, even for the rest 50% who think about this use case, a good majority would go ahead and try to plug random values. They will not try to compartmentalize them into 2 buckets like positive, negative. You even thought of taking fractions, but you did not end up doing that. So that's a separate story, but at least you thought of it. So what I'm able to see is that when you think about problems, you are thinking in case by case format. So that way you're sorted. You know that I have to approach it in this fashion. So what we need to improve is we need to train you to think in a certain way. That's what we need to train. For example, if I solve this question, I know again this is something which I have read, so I know it. When I had not read it, I was not aware of it. So not taking anything away from you. What I will look at is in these problems, I need to consider 4 score range, 4 value ranges.
Yep.
First range is
Yep.
1 to infinity, 0 to 1, minus 0,
I'm
minus
already
1
realizing
to
between 0 and 1 would also be smaller. So
yes.
yeah.
So you need to basically look at these different use cases, just this 4 use cases. And again, in GMAT, they can tweak this a little. They can even make it like this. In that case, I will not compare the values of x. I'll compare the values of 2x rather. So I will change this ranges to, let's say, 0 to half, 0 to minus half. That's all. So again, these are like small tweaks which GMAT does for you. I'm not here to teach you exactly this question, but what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to train yourself to think in a certain fashion. But the way you are solving this tells me you are methodical. Number 2 now. Let's talk about the understanding of concepts. That right now is a little bit of a problem. So you said that theory building is an issue for you. I would definitely recommend theory building because you remember a good number of things, but there are certain minute things which you do not remember, and you are also trying to, let's say, escape from the problem sometimes. Like you think that you have put in a certain effort, you have almost come to the result, and at that point of time you say that okay, it's enough. I probably know I've already got my answer. For example, from here, I'm not sure how you got to this inference that x is equal to 2 and 3. I'm not saying this is equal to. This is an inequality. This is not an equality, right? So sometimes you are jumping to certain inferences, even after putting in all the effort, which is something you have to stop doing. And this is where the attention deficiency could be kicking in. So you have to force yourself to probably stop and do things slowly. That is what I would recommend. Maybe write things down if required, and not right now you do not have a pen and paper, so I'm not taking that away from you. But yeah, try to write down the important steps overall. And also it could be because of your conceptual issues that you don't know how to solve an inequality. You probably assume that in the case of inequality also it will work like this. So over here, concept building is also needed. Now, looking at the time which is available with you, so two quick key questions that you asked in your email, and your email was really very well detailed. So thank you for that. That gave me like a good idea about like the key questions that you had. So one question which Harry had was, can he achieve this score in this timeline? If I look at my initial discussion with you, the initial like question that you have solved, the method that I can see, my answer to that is yes. I have a very, very strong feeling that you can make this happen. So please make sure that you're not cutting corners anywhere. You're not taking it lightly either. Your score is pretty good to start with. You can do that. Second question, what about theory building? Should you do it completely? Should you not do it? My recommendation would be you should do it. Like if you remember in case of Abhishek, I said that you should work only on your concept and application weaknesses, low hanging fruits basically, and you should not worry about everything. But considering that you can probably devote, if required, 150 hours, I would recommend you to do a thorough work, because you, I feel, have the capability. If you do it well, you have the capability of getting this number up. And if you are looking at let you said that 790 is the ideal score. In case you're looking at that kind of a number, you need to get this number up for sure. uh, Verbal alone is not going to help. So you can get this up. So I would not recommend you to leave any topic. Now, with respect to the problem that you said, that you, when you start doing theory building, you kind of face issues with learning. It seems slow to you. There are two ways to go about this. Number one, you should refer to theory building from a material which kind of makes it application focused. So it's possible, again, I'm not taking any names, anything, but it's possible that the resources you have used till now, some of them were a lot of text, a lot of theory, where you were not able to see, it was like abstract formulas, abstract things. How it really works in a question is something which you felt was not there. So that's number one solution to the problem. The second solution to your problem is that, and again, this is not the most recommended one. First one is more recommended, that you focus on application-driven theory building, not just theory building. But the second one is that you can leave aside theory building for the moment and expose yourself to all varieties of questions from a particular topic. Very important part. If you do just questions from a particular topic, you may not expose yourself to all varieties. Why is it important to expose yourself to all varieties? The reason for that is simple. If you expose yourself to all varieties, you will expose yourself to all different ways in which a concept can be tested. So let's say you make a mistake in a question. It's okay. You will make a mistake. You review the solution. You will learn the theory from that one. Okay. But as I said, this one is not the most recommended path, simply because there will always be a possibility of you leaving out a few topics here and there, a few question types here and there. So it's better to kind of stick to your usual, like, first approach of application driven theory building. And again, this is not the scope of the discussion for today's session today, but in your email, you also asked about GMAT quiz and other things. I'm not answering that question entirely. We can always have a separate discussion on that. But overall, this theory building and all of that, application-driven theory building is something which we do in GMAT quiz. And the various variety of questions that I was talking about is also done through concept boosters in GMAT quiz. So you can definitely look at it. But your broader question, I feel you should devote about 100 good hours on quant. If you can devote 100 good hours on quant, I have a very strong feeling you will end up with a 48 or more. At least considering that you have not done a lot, the way you're thinking, that thought process is good overall. Okay. Now, with respect to the attention deficiency, what I would recommend in that respect is that initially sit for like 15 to 30 minute sessions only. Like sit for 15-30 minutes, take a break, come back, study again. Follow this regime for, I would say, a week or 10 days to get comfortable with it. then increase that duration to, let's say, a 45-minute or an hour slot. This is what I personally did initially also. And then try to get comfortable with that 1 hour slot for a week or so, or 10 days, and then gradually increase it to 1.5 hours. Your ideal goal should be that by your GMAT date comes close, by that date, you should be able to sit for 2.5 hours at a stretch. Why am I saying 2.5 hours, not 3 hours? Because again, two sections are more important, quant and verbal. IR and EW are not that critical. Even if you are less focused, you can still work better on that. So
Yeah.
if you can stretch yourself to that point, that should work. And you do it in phased ways, it will work better for you. And in order to keep your motivation on your side, it is very important that you should take verbal alongside as well, like not just focus on quant. Do a little bit of verbal, maybe identify a few days on which you're going to do verbal prep. And for verbal prep, again, I'm going to just tell you a quick fix. So in verbal, what you should do is something what I recommended for Abhishek in quant, something similar to that. So what you need to do is you need to take a benchmark quiz of sentence correction and critical reasoning and RC separately. So even your mock you can look at, or rather take about 30 questions from SCCR and RC individually and identify, categorize them into two buckets. Like one group is where your score is less than 70 percentile. So this is percentile, which I'm saying. This will be close to, again, if you take the right mix of questions, that will be close to about 80% accuracy, 75 to 80% accuracy approximately. Okay. So if group one is where your focus should be, in my personal opinion. So let's say an example, let's say this is basically what you end up with. So this is your strong area, these two are your weak areas. You should prioritize these two areas over SC overall. So you should work on CR and RC first. If you get time, you can also work on sentence correction. And for weak areas, you need to kind of identify in which topics your score is less than 60%. First, work on this specific topics. Only do the theory building for those and practice on these particular areas first. That is what you need to focus on. And when you are doing this, try to see if you can learn a methodical approach over here as well. So in verbal, my recommendation would be to just tackle your weak areas, because I feel that there would be one area in which you are performing poorly in all three. Again, check that out consistently and work on that. In verbal, you need to spend about, I would say, 25% of your effort. Quant should be about 75% of your effort overall. Okay. Does that help overall?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions that you have in your mind for the next thing?
Probably too many.
Okay.
But
Please go ahead. We can take a few definitely, and then we're gonna invite Tia as well. But yeah.
yeah, well, like I mean, I'm just like the first thing I think about is just that the question I just ran through, and so I know that I rushed because of just being in this situation, but at the same time, that probably would happen in any other situation too. Like I'd probably use the test conditions to push myself to rush certain questions if I felt like I needed to be catching up on time or something. So, yeah, and so like all these silly mistakes, as you were calling them earlier, yeah, I don't really think of them as silly mistakes. I feel like at the end of the day, a lost mark, like a lost question is a lost question. So,
Exactly. That's the right way to think about it.
and so I know that my biggest thing is having to really read questions. But as far as trying to motivate myself, I like your suggestion of sort of starting with short sessions, maybe increasing it. Something else I was thinking about was even jumping on something like Twitch and live streaming, even if no one's watching, but just making a commitment to say, well, the world is like going to see
Watching
whether or
you.
not I'm sticking to my schedule or not. Like, so
No, that's a nice
I
way.
kind of
That's a nice way to look at it.
yeah, I mean, kind of making like a public study session.
Yeah, if possible, do that. Like that's a nice way. In fact, you can also find someone who you can study with, if possible. Like again, I'm not sure like if you can find someone, but yeah, if you can, that will be good. That way, both of you can actually push yourself and try to find someone with complementary skills if you can. Like maybe on GMAT Club also you can try writing a post or something if you cannot find anyone else in your time zone. That way, that will also help you. But yeah, the idea is to sit slowly and gradually increasing it to like a bigger duration, because for me it has never worked. Like I have a similar problem as you had, so that is definitely something.
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that is a hurdle for me is the idea of, okay, now I have to sit down and for the next 5 hours, that's what I'm going to be doing. That stops me from even starting. So Yeah.
I can relate to that. Yeah, but I think gradually doing it will definitely help you for sure. And
Yeah, no, I
regarding your
appreciate
first
that.
question, if you have gotten the answer to that, it's fine. But to avoid silly mistakes, sometimes making them helps. So when you make enough of them, you start realizing that I'm missing out on marks just because of my own habit of doing things like too fast. So I've done that. I've like faced the downside of it. So that also kind of helped me to push myself to just be slow. So we just have to tell ourselves to be slow overall.
Yeah.
That's what your subconscious mind should keep telling you the moment you are jumping onto things.
Yeah, I really just need to slow myself down. It looks like I might already have a study buddy.
Yes, Aryan is there to join you on Twitch for sure. So yeah, that's nice. That's the benefit of this public forum. Good, good. Perfect,
Okay.
Harry. So I'm gonna just summarize the key takeaways from our discussion. So my recommendation, as I said, is like theory building should be done from an application perspective. That's my recommendation. And what I mean by this is don't just learn concepts like from text or something. Try to see how they apply, how they make sense, how they impact a certain question on the GMAT. So try to do it from that perspective. That will keep you interested. And what you should also do is if there is a common mistake which is happening regularly, you need to do a little more deep dive into that particular concept, because I see this is gonna happen in your case if the problems that you talked about are really big problems for you. So identify those common areas in which you make issue like errors. And very important thing which I would recommend to you is that you should revise important questions every 15 days. Now what I mean by this, so when you're solving a question, let's say you come across something where you have a significant learning, any question where you have a significant learning, make a mark of the question. Like I used to in my notebook, I used to kind of circle that question, or maybe like put a rectangle around it to kind of come back to the question every 15 days. I would strongly recommend you do that, because if attention deficiency is a problem, you will also start forgetting important things after some days. So that is something you need to account for and plan for. So revise those important questions. This is what helped me significantly to improve my performance. And for verbal, my recommendation is to work on the low hanging fruits. Those sectional tests, as I said, is where you should start with, and work on your weak areas first. Only concepts in which your score is less than 60%. That's where you need to give a lot more attention, and that should kind of improve your score overall. And then you can do a lot more practice and other things around that. So this is my personal recommendation. We had a similar
Yeah.
use case as yours overall, and like I'll talk about that as well. But from December 10th onwards, like about 30 days or 30 odd days from now, you should then start taking mocks and do fine tuning as needed. As in the mocks, try to see in which areas those common mistakes are happening, and then do a lot more fine tuning around that. Okay,
Yeah.
and then do it, and I'm pretty sure it is definitely possible. Just to give you an idea, this guy Shreyash, we again worked with him. He also scored a verbal quant 42. His verbal was also not that great when he started, but he was a smart chap. He scored a verbal for quant 42 in the first attempt, and about a month and a half of prep, proper desired prep, he was able to improve his quant score to a 50. Non-native speaker, for him a quant verbal 42 was a big number. In your case, definitely you can do much better than that. But yeah, in case you want to take some inspiration from Shayash's case, I'm not sure if you have seen his interview, but in case you want to
Uh,
just check this out, interview out, you
well,
can do
so one
this.
question with this then was Shreyash doing something like 3 hours per day? Is that the kind of benchmark that we're talking about,
Yeah,
or?
so he had a lot of problems at work as well. So for the first like 2 months, he was not even able to study. So after that, he started doing almost, I guess, half an hour to 1 hour a day. And after like 15-20 days, he even actually took a little bit of break from office to study. So his case was different. He was in a startup unicorn in India, and it was like really 14-15 hours day working for him. So it was very difficult for him to give a time.
Wow.
His case was a little
Yeah.
different overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get my head around if I have the time that I'll be able to make that. Like,
No, no,
yeah. I mean,
he
these kind of
did not
results. Is
study
that?
for a long. He did
Yeah.
not study effectively for a very long time. I guess in quant, overall, he gave about 70-80 hours of effective effort. That is what I can understand. But your skill level
Okay.
and his skill level are slightly different. He was slightly better than you in terms of quant, slightly better.
Sure.
So I would
Sure.
say you should account for about 120 hours of effort on quant. That is my personal recommendation. And about 30% to 30 hours or 40 hours on verbal should get you the deal over.
Sounds good.
Okay. Great,
Thank you.
man. So thank you so much for being here. It was definitely nice. I wanted someone from a slightly different background, so really happy to have you here. If you will
No,
feel free to connect with me on my WhatsApp number, we are already connected anyway, so that will be
yep.
great. Thank you,
No, I
man.
appreciate you having me. And yeah, thanks everyone for bearing with me.
Okay, Harry. Have a good, yeah, good night to you finally. Bye.
Yeah, and good day to you, I guess.
Okay, so that was Harry from Australia. Now we have a third student, and I'm really sorry, Tia, for making you wait a lot. I guess it's already a little late your end, but yeah, Tia is someone who has prepared a little for the like for the GMAT, and I would welcome Tia here. Tia, this was your first attempt at the GMAT, if I'm right.
Yes, this is the first actual GMAT test that I took.
Okay. And Tia scored a 500. And please correct me if I have anything wrong over here. But if I remember, you had a quant 34 and a verbal 25.
Yeah, it's the con is 34 and the verbal is 25, and they are pretty much way lower than the mock test that I have.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the mocks as well. I would want to have the data point. What I remember, like again, this is something which you, I guess, discussed with another person from the GMATVIS team. But your mocks were around 600. Is that right, or how was
Yeah.
it?
So I put a detail. So before I joined EGMAT, my mock was 420, and after
Okay.
EGMAT I got 440, and the first
Okay.
mock after learning from GMAT-Wiz videos, Miss Sunita's videos, I got 570, so 130
Okay.
points improved. After that, I learned again the second mock, I got 580, and then the
Okay.
third mock, I got 620, and then the
Mm-hmm.
next mock, I got 680. Yeah,
Okay. So the last one you got a 680 also.
yeah.
Okay. Hmm. So can you tell me the quant and verbal splits in this last four mocks? Let's talk about these four.
Yes, for the last four, okay.
Yes,
For
exactly.
the 570, the verbal is 32 and the quant is 36. Yeah, and for the 580, the verbal is 36 and the quant is 34. And the 620, my verbal was 29, but my quant was 47. And in 680, I got verbal 38 and quant 45.
Repeat the first mock again for me. The first one, just the
Sorry.
first. This one, 571. Can you repeat this score for me?
For the 570, the verbal was 32
Yes.
and the quant was 36. Verbal 32 and quant 36, yeah.
And tell me one more thing. Like, these are all official mocks you're talking about, right?
Yes, only official mocks from mba.com.
And I'm assuming that you simulated the exam environment, like you did not
Yes.
pause between any of these mocks.
No,
Okay.
not at all. I prepared all the board and yeah, just everything.
Okay. Okay. And how many questions were already known to you, because you have been preparing for quite some time? So did you see any quant questions or any verbal questions in the last two mocks which you were aware of beforehand?
Yeah, I think for the quant, my weak areas were in the coordinate geometry and function. I think
Mhm.
those are the two concepts that I don't know. I just try so hard to study by my own, but I just never nailed it. But in verbal, I think if I see the breakdown, I also make error logs. Like in general, in the mocks, for example, I got SC4 wrong, and then sorry, SC4 wrong. I got SC4
Mhm.
incorrect, and then RC4 incorrect, but CR is my weakest area. So
Okay. Okay.
SC, the breakdown is like two incorrect questions is around in 600, 700 level, and the other two is
Mhm.
the 700 level questions incorrect. But for the CR, it's just I'm weak at that. Yeah, I got 6 incorrect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got that. So let's say CR is basically the weakest for you, then followed by
Yeah.
sentence correction. But what I was asking was, in this two quant scores, was
Mm-hmm.
any in these two marks, was any question already known to you, basically? Like
Already, sorry?
beforehand, you were aware of few questions already. As in,
Oh,
sometimes
no,
when
no,
we
no.
do GMAT question, all were fresh
No,
questions.
no, it's all fresh. So I purchased the 3 and 4th mock, and yeah, that's totally new. So I don't retake because they can refresh at least one time, right? I don't retake it. So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And after the 680 attempt, you took the GMAT exam and you scored a
yeah.
34 over there. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, fine. So interesting. So let me again, and I'm gonna also put you on the spot a little, just to see basically your understanding of quantitative reasoning. But
Oh
I'll
my
come to
goodness.
that a little later.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
come to
been a
that a
while. I
little
haven't
later.
trained Quan, but okay.
That's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about that. So you, I guess, have 3 hours daily. Basically, for time wise, you can devote about 3 hours on a daily basis, and you have already used, I think, EGMAT and Score Leap, these two courses as you mentioned. And your primarily thing is study strategy is what you're looking for the reattempt, and your target is 680, and pre-recorded videos don't work for you. Those are the two questions that you had when you
Yeah.
messaged us. So let's talk about the target score of 680. So in my opinion, at least right now, you are equally good in both sections. Like I'm ignoring the last two mock scores, like the quant scores over there.
Mhm.
So for a moment, so what I think is you should balance the target score. In this case, you should try to balance it as much as possible. For a 680, your target score should be about a 47 in quant and 36 in verbal. I know that you have done a few mocks where you have gotten a little better in verbal than this. So if I take that into account, I might even say that you might even target up to a 38 in verbal as well if you are doing consistently well over there. That way, your pressure from confirm reduce a little. But the better target is like a 47 and a 38 if you are able to do as well as you said in the few marks. So this is my recommendation for the target score side of things. Now, let's talk about specifics. So quant 45 to 47, as you mentioned, is an outlier in my opinion. So I would kind of want to see how you approach questions just to kind of understand whether this is an
Okay.
outlier or what your real school is. So again, I'm just trying to create a question out of my mind. So this, I'm not interested in the right answer or the wrong answer. What I'm interested in is how you approach this question. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get this question. Okay. And I'm not checking the factually correct fact whether this question is factually correct or not. So it might be wrong just putting it out loud to everyone. My interest is in just to ensuring that we kind of understand what is the current skill level of Tia in terms of how she approaches questions. Okay, so I'm just putting it out loud to all the people who are here. Okay, so let's get this. Just a second.
All right. Disclaimer, guys. It's been 1 month since I studied my last con, but okay.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm just
Okay.
interested in seeing how you approach. Yeah.
Okay. So first, since this is data sufficiency question and it's asking about the value of the LCM of X and Y, I was thinking of, before looking at the statement, I was looking for a way to find the value of X and Y.
Okay.
And then I check on the first statement. The first statement is basically informing me the GCD of 3X and 2Y.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too unknown, so I cannot really say anything. So I think I will just check it as insufficient. And then in the second statement, it tells me about the LCM as well. Yeah, with the LCM, we also have two unknowns, and we cannot really compute the LCM of X and Y. Wait a second. I don't know if we can compute with the statement two or not, but
Why do you think you can
alright.
compete with statement one?
What is it? Sorry. Oh,
Why do you think
yeah.
statement 1 is sufficient?
I was thinking that in statement 1 it is insufficient because
Okay.
it tells us about the GCD value of 3x and 2y, and we cannot compute yet what is the value of 3x and 2y. So, but yeah, I
Okay,
think
I want you to
I
spend a
don't know.
little more time on
Yeah,
the statement 1. I understand that
yeah.
you're saying that you cannot compute the value of 3x and 2y, but anything else can you compute from it?
What is it? Sorry.
Anything
Pardon?
else can you compute from this statement 1?
I'm sorry, sir. I totally forgot the concept for this one. But yeah.
Okay, okay. So it has, all right.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Any other area that you are good at? Any other area that you like to do solve questions from
Um,
in quant?
in quant, I think
Yes.
the other concepts that I'm totally weak is the coordinate geometry and function. I mean, like in other questions, even though, for example, I forgot a formula or something, I can tweak it in any other way. But when
Mhm.
I face those two questions, it's just something that I cannot, like imagine how to solve it. So those are the two
Okay.
concepts that, I'm aware I'm really weak on.
Okay. Okay. No, it's fine. Yeah. So basically, see again, don't take anything in a wrong fashion, which I'm gonna say over here. It's just to kind of give you a fair estimate of where you stand. Okay. So
Okay.
right now, if I like, if I let's say talk about someone who has scored 45 or 47 in quant, generally after 1 month of not preparing,
Studying.
also studying, also you should be able to have some remnant memory of that, a little
Yeah.
basically, so you
Yeah.
should be able to come up with slightly better inferences. So with
Yeah.
that understanding in place, what I would assume right now is that your current skill level, and let me just get this ink out over here. So what I would assume right now is that your current skill level, in my opinion, in quant is something in this range. I'm taking a slightly
Oh.
broader range, okay,
Yeah.
but I'm just taking it a little broad over here so that we have a exact. So I'm just taking those two days, those 2 marks out of the equation right now. Just leaving those a little out of the equation, and I'm not completely taking them out of the equation. I'm just giving you a little benefit of doubt there as well. That there's a
Yeah.
possibility that you might have gotten a little like little more questions from your stronger areas in the beginning, and you might have followed a certain timing strategy that I recommend in my sessions, where you focus a little more on the first few questions and kind of balance it out. Did you do that, or did you follow the same timing strategy?
I think even for verbal or quant, I just invest equally, like 2 minutes max per
Equally.
questions. Yeah.
Okay. So that was not the case then. So basically, I would assume you are at a level of 35 to 40. So in your
Mm.
case, Tia, if I have to tell you, like again, I have not prepared any slides as such over here in depth, but just to give you an idea, this is going to be a verbal communication. So what I would recommend is a complete overhaul of quant is needed. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to focus your time on concept building as well as application building. So you should not assume that you need to work only on specific areas, because if you are really at this level, it
Mhm.
is a high chance that you need to work on the other topics as well. So don't
Yeah.
assume
Yeah.
that you are good in the other topics. And what you should do is you should do this in a phased fashion. You should first work on getting easy and medium questions right. In fact,
Yeah.
when you're starting initially, your focus should be that I should get 100% accuracy on easy questions, and my
Mhm.
accuracy should be about 80% approximately in the medium questions. To start off with, this should be your target, basically. Okay? Because honestly, you cannot jump from this score directly to a quant 47. It will not happen. You
Yeah.
need to first get from here to, let's say, something around a quant 43, 44
Yeah.
overall, and then from here you can jump to a quant 47.
Yeah.
Okay, So what I'm looking at is that you need to do a complete overhaul of all the things. Take one topic at a time, starting from the more simpler topics. And again, if you look at GMAT Viz, you will get all these data points in detail, like step by step, every single place. And like obviously, like how you prepare, I'm going to come to that later. But overall, what you need to do is take one topic at a time, get the easy and medium questions right. Easy 100%, medium you should aim for about 80% approximately. And in the hard questions, hard basically means 700 or 750 level questions. There, even I don't care about what is your accuracy here. So let me put not applicable right now. So even if it is 0%, you should not be worried about it right now. Your worry should be only easy and medium questions. If you get to these two numbers or all the topics, you're comfortably going to get a Quant 44 for sure.
And how many
Okay.
numbers per practice? I mean, in each set, would you
So
recommend?
you need to get to this. You need to solve as many questions as required to get to this level. So in some topics, you might get to this level by solving like 15 questions. In some concepts, it might take you 30 questions also, 40 questions also. What is important that you need to get to this level in almost every topic, basically. That's your first goal. Okay. And then once this goal is achieved, then what you need to do is, then you need to take out few strong areas. Okay. So you look at strong areas, let's say, what are your strong suits? Let's say, for example, let's take
overlapping sets.
Overlapping sets. Okay, so let's say that's your strong suit. So identify, let's say, another 5, 7, or 10 topics, as many as possible, which are strong suits of yours, and then try to get the hard questions right over there as well. So in the strong suit, your thought should be that this should be 100, this should be 100, and this one should be about 60-70%. Understood? So that is what your goal should be. That once I've achieved the goal of getting to a Quant 44, then I will improve it to a Quant 47.
Okay.
Okay. Is this part clear? Any questions on that one?
Yeah, just one question. I understand that, for example, I got 100% in each topic, but what is the recommended number of questions in each set when I train? Do you have any recommendation number of questions?
See,
for example, 15
minimum,
questions in each set, or
on the
30
minimum, I would
questions?
say 15. I would say minimum of 15. But if you're not getting this score, then you should increase the number or the number of questions that you're solving. And it's understand it this way, Tia, it's not just about increasing the number of questions. It will be wrong for me to say that just by doing more questions, you will get them right. What is important also is that you analyze each question properly, learn from the questions that you're solving, see why are you making those mistakes, and try to improve on them. Otherwise, you will actually go in round and round circles all the time. So there's no point of that. So ideally 15 minimum, and maximum could be even 40 or 50 in one or two cases. Because understand it this way, we are talking about only easy and medium questions. We are not talking about hard questions right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So do this, and this will help you improve your score. So gradually do this. Understood?
Okay. Understood.
Okay. If this is clear, we can then move to verbal.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna remove this all. So let's go to verbal now. Now, one thing which you said that, which I can see even in your latest trend, is your verbal scores have improved consistently. Like you are, if I just leave out this score once, you are at least in the verbal 30 plus range. In fact, in 2 mocks, you have done very well on verbal, and in the actual test, you are not able to do as well. That would be because of the fact that you have not really, you might not have, let's say you might have felt a little bit anxious during the test. That could also be because of that overall. But I feel that in verbal, you right now are in a slightly better situation than you are in quant overall, confidence wise at least. So what I recommend in verbal is that you kind of focus on maintaining that momentum that you have on the side with you. So in fact, if I want you to right now restart your studies, I would say that you should first give priority to verbal. Okay. Why so? Because right now you have seen some improvement in verbal after the sessions that you attended and all of that. So you have a positive mindset about verbal. If you work with that positive mindset, that will keep you motivated to push yourself for quant as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So my recommendation would be that next 2 weeks you devote to verbal. Try to get to that verbal 35 range with more consistency, if possible, in this time. But 2 weeks is what you focus on verbal. See specific areas, as you said, CR is a bigger problem for you in general in verbal, followed by SC. In this case, what I would recommend is that you should work on SC first and then CR, not the other way around. Because if both are a problem, working on SC first makes sense. So if possible, try to improve your SC skills at least in 2 weeks. Try to focus on the meaning-based approach and try to get to that level in sentence correction. And then after 2 weeks, what you should do is you should devote 50% of your time to verbal and 50% of your time to quant.
Okay.
Because you need to do a lot more work in quant. So it's important that you start working on quant. And and in this 2 weeks, basically, like after 2 weeks, with 50% effort that you're putting in, you will follow the next thing in verbal, which will most likely be critical reasoning in your case. Okay. And gradually you will take this down to 30% and increase this to 70%. So maybe after another 2 weeks of this or 3 weeks, whatever you feel is right, you need to decrease the effort on verbal to 30 and increase the effort on quant to 70%.
Yeah.
Okay. And in verbal also, I would not leave anything unturned. SC and CR is where you focus. And in these areas, you need to try and learn the concepts from an application perspective. So if attending Sunita's session was so helpful for you, you were able to see the approach, a framework-driven mindset in those classes, it is very important that you continue applying that in every single question that you solve. So you need to learn the concepts also from that perspective. So I would strongly recommend you to definitely look at the GMAT Quiz course because it is created by Sunita herself. So the entire thought process is basically centered around that application only. So that will help you to build a thought process of even every concept from that application perspective, in my opinion. So try to get that done. And this verbal score will boost your confidence to work on quant as well.
Yeah.
Overall. So if you follow this, I basically see this going on for about 2 to 3 months. Personal opinion, 2 to 3 months, you should be in a position to start taking, let's say, mocks again and even write the GMAT really soon. So 2 to 3 months of effort should go on this preparation in this fashion, and that should get you the result that you're aiming for.
Okay.
Overall. And we need to definitely realign our strategy during this time. So very important for you would be to just work with a mentor as well, who kind of assesses your skill level every 15-20 days. So you need to check, okay, what skill level I have achieved in the last 15-20 days? How have I improved my confidence level? So obviously there are certain more changes that need to be done. The other two students that I talked about, Abhishek and Harry, they were much ahead in their GMAT journey compared to yours. So obviously for them, we can still look at the next 1 month or 2 months with a clarity of mind. But in your case, it is important that we look at the journey every 15 to 20 days, see where we are headed, whatever changes are required, we do those changes in real time, basically. And this is not just for Tia, for anyone who is in a similar score range, it is very important that you keep this in mind, that you cannot work with a strategy and continue working with that. It is very important to pivot that strategy as you move forward during the discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
And
so does this provide?
Just one question. Yeah, you mentioned about within 2 weeks, for example, the first 2 weeks trying to achieve the verbal 35. So is it like 2 weeks, one mock each week, or just one mock in 2 weeks?
So you don't need to worry about the score basically. So this is again, just ignore this part altogether. Okay, just keep this out of mind. This was just to kind of so this was in my subconscious.
Okay.
No, not really. So what I should rephrase myself. So what I meant by this was, when I say verbal 35, it basically means that you have reached to a position where you can confidently tackle all easy and medium questions, and in the hard questions also you have about 60-70% accuracy. So since in these 2 weeks you are only working on sentence correction, there is no point of thinking about mocks. And there's no point of thinking about the overall verbal score. What I meant was, to get to the verbal 35 level was that in sentence correction itself, your confidence should boost to a degree where you are getting easy and medium questions correct completely. And even the hard questions, you have a decent accuracy, basically. Try to improve that first, basically. So that will give you that confidence boost that you require. And then starting quant will make more sense. That's the idea.
Okay,
Mocks are
understood.
not going to
Understood.
happen before 2 months. 2 months is something which you should not worry about at all. Like your mock should only happen before after this, because otherwise you will be ending up wasting your mock tests. If you
Yeah,
are
yeah,
under prepared, then there's no point in using the mock. And that's why I'm saying that in this 2 months also take a just check out how you're progressing. If you're progressing well, then probably this can be fast tracked a little. But my guess is that it will be about 2 months after which you should be taking a little more mocks, basically. And
yeah.
in case you end up choosing to work with GMAT Viz, you will be able to see on our platform itself, we give you a projected score performance. And there was one student who was asking about how close the projected score performances are of GMAT Viz. They are very accurate in terms of what you are performing. So it will tell you that in the topics that you have done till now, your level is around verbal 34 or 35 or 36.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something which we tell you. So you don't necessarily need to take a mock test to understand where you are. You will get an
Yeah, yeah.
approximate idea of your current standing. That's the thing.
Okay, 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 understood.
Okay. Any other question you had, Tia, in your mind?
Um, yeah, actually, that's the thing that I mentioned to you. I'm really interested in GMAT because I'm really helped by the videos of Miss Sunita, and I know that I need the dedicated mentor to to check on me. It's just the pre-recorded videos. I'm just afraid that it's going to be my third time, failing using a
Um,
prep platform, and yeah, those stuff. That's actually what makes me hesitate. Yeah.
So, Tia, again, first thing, not every, again, this is a discussion not related to the session today, so we can always have
Oh
a
yeah,
detailed
yeah,
discussion later on. But since you have asked this question on the forum, let me quickly answer you. So, not every course has the same level of quality in the video. So, our
yeah.
videos are done a lot better, a lot shorter, concise to the point, and focus more on application. So my recommendation would be to try the free trial first, number one. Number two, looking at your history with recorded videos, if that's a problem, we need to definitely talk about alternatives. We have live
Yeah,
classes also where we kind of conduct the
yeah.
sessions in a live environment. So I can definitely help you around with that. So I'll schedule another discussion with you. Maybe tomorrow you can just ping me on WhatsApp once whenever you're available, and let's connect once and see what we can work out for you. So I'll talk about that part, but since it's not related to the discussion today, I'm not going into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
depth of it right now. But
Okay,
definitely
okay.
something can be worked out, so you don't need to worry about that part.
Yeah.
Overall.
Okay then. Actually, that's all. Thank you so much, Piyush.
Great, great. And it was great of you to kind of join us and share your thoughts here. So I hope the session was helpful, and be positive. You can also definitely improve your score. Just to give you an idea, there was one of our students who worked with us who started at a score of 460. In fact, like you were still at a
Oh,
500, and she scored a 460 on the actual GMAT the very first attempt, and she was able to improve it to 710 as well working with us. So if you want to draw some inspiration, you can definitely check out her interview like after like tomorrow also. Like again, right now it's too late for you, but yeah, you can just have this link bookmarked and check it out later. But definitely you can also improve your score if basically
yeah.
Maria can help
Mari,
you definitely.
yeah, I remember the video. Maria was using the
Yes.
private tutoring, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. So she was using private tutoring again. For her also similar problem happened. Like she used two other courses like Empower, GMAT, and I think Economist or Empower, one of the two, and GMAT. So she was not very comfortable with the online course model. So for her that option worked. But when Maria was working with us, we did not have live classes option. So that is another new option that we have kind of
Mhm.
created. So you can definitely look at that as well. But anyway, as I said, we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
What is important is that you can take some lessons from Maria's discussion about what she got help with. So that is something you can do. But stay positive. That is very important, and definitely
Yeah.
you can achieve a top score. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Tia, for coming. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. So that was it from our side. I guess we had three good students. We talked about three different use cases. I tried my best to kind of come up with different scenarios altogether, and we looked at different use cases. In case any of you want to connect with me later on as well, I'm just sharing this link on the chat, like chat. You can connect with me one-on-one. We can do a in-depth discussion. I've tried to create three different use cases, but still, if you want more personalized inputs, you can always reach out to me using this link. So that's all from my side. If you anyone have anyone if you have any questions, I'm here for another 4-5 minutes. I can definitely take your questions, and you can also reach out to me on the details that you can see on our screen. Okay, and in case any one of you is interested in a very advanced course which kind of helps you learn a more strategic approach towards the GMAT, you can definitely look at the GMAT West course. There is a detailed free trial which is available. The link I'm just sharing in the chat. But please feel free to go ahead and ask any questions that you might have around it. And okay, so let's see if I have any other questions now in the chat. Okay, so still don't see any question. So Vigya is saying how to improve from verbal 34 to verbal 40 plus. So again, so Vigya, your use case in this case is very similar to what Abhishek had. So we need to like approach it in the same format. So I would recommend you to connect with me if your question was not answered. I would like to see how you approach the questions, what is the difference basically, and how to improve it further. As per your data, as you said, you have achieved RC 100% accuracy and in CR analysis. I believe that you're talking about your ESR. You do have your ESR with you. So it will be great if you can share your ESR. None of the students today had their ESRs with them. Otherwise, I would have done an ESR analysis also to help you guys understand the lessons that we can generate from an ESR. So please do share your ESR with me on the email ID or just schedule a call with me. I'll definitely love to have a look at your case and understand your case better. But it seems like prima facie a case of poor score on sentence correction, like where the concepts could also be weak. But as I said, I would like to look at your ESR to draw more inferences from it, and I would also like to know more about your other mock scores, because we need to make sure that your performance in CR and RC was consistent before coming to a conclusion. So I would definitely like to know a lot more data points before I come to that. When shall one take mocks? Anish is asking someone who is on GMAT platform. So Anish, ideally, you should take mocks when you have at least completed the GMAT course, the recommended part of the course, and when you're comfortable with the methodologies that are being taught. That's when you should take the mocks. If you are a GMAT student, you can also connect with your mentor. In case you like, you can just mail us on support@gmatwist.com. In case you want to connect with your mentor, you would have received the email as well with the link, so you can connect with your mentors, ask them about this. They will look at your data and also help you with that part. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Anish. Okay, I don't see any other question apart from this. So Munindra had a different question long back. He was asking about the sentence correction question that we solved. So again, Munindra, it's possible that you were not aware of that hypothetical event, hypothetical situation of that concept basically. So you might need to read upon all the concepts, and that's where I was telling about importance of exposing yourself to all varieties of questions that is tested on the GMAT. So that is something which is very important. So could have been is a hypothetical situation, meaning wise, logically, if I go about it. So that is something we need to probably learn about. Thank you, Tia. I'm happy to hear that. I will definitely pass your regards to Sunita. And I'm really happy to know that the discussions with Sunita helped you, like the sessions. Okay, any strategy for Q80 to Q50 plus? So we get very similar to what I discussed with Abhishek. So if you're in that range, you should watch the discussion that I had with Abhishek earlier today. So you need to avoid silly mistakes. In your case, it will be less of red areas or the concept areas. It will be more of application areas, and then you need to avoid silly mistakes. And as I said, you can connect with me to discuss it further. I would like to understand a few more things and can give you more feedback around that overall. Okay, guys, I don't see any other question. Okay, guys, I hope the session was beneficial today. I tried to come up with a different experience, like to kind of help students real time. This is something which I do on a regular basis with many students, like almost like 5 to 6 students I speak to almost every day in this way, and like we help them understand how they can actually improve their scores in the best possible way. So in case you want to connect with me, you can also connect later. I was only able to invite 2 or 3 students, so I just went ahead with the maximum I could for the session for the sake of timing and discussion. But if you want to discuss with us about how we can help you improve your scores, GMAT Viz has the highest score improvement in the entire industry today. So if you want to connect with us, you can always reach out to us using the link which I shared. So all the best. It was great interacting with all of you. Have a great day. Bye.